I'm Cynthia Vedetto, and today I'm going to talk to you about some different motivation strategies that you can use in the classroom to affect your students. So, we all know that students are motivated differently, and we have to find our students' individual motivation needs. We have to find what works for each student. Taking the time to figure that out is going to pay off in the long run. So, I'm going to go over 3 motivation theories that can have a deep impact on your students. You can mix and match motivation strategies, find out what works for your teaching style and what works for your students. The 3 theories that we're going to go over today is goals and goal attribution, orientation, causal attribution, and expectancy and value. So, as far as goal content and goal orientation, there are some points to setting successful goals with your students. So, first, allow your students to set their own goals. Self set goals are more likely to be worked on and met. If you, as the teacher, set the goals for your students, those students are not going to be quite as invested in those goals. They may not be as challenging as you would set for your students, but by setting them themselves, those students are buying into the process and more likely to complete the overall task. Make sure your students are setting smaller, more frequent goals. Having one large final goal can overwhelm them. So by splitting it up, the students can achieve success in their goals, which is going to lead to a growth mindset and self-efficacy. Be sure that your students have set goals that have a mastery orientation. So the focus of the goal should be learning a new skill or mastering a task. A performance orientation is more focused on showing their ability to others or showing off or trying to not be the stupid kid in class. Performance-oriented goals can lead to anxiety or to task avoidance, and we don't want that. The mastery goals tend to lead students to attributing success or failure to their own effort as opposed to attributing their success to ability, which is that fixed mindset. We want them to have that growth mindset. And so with that in mind, these goals should be created with a growth mindset and not a fixed mindset. These are more likely to lead to self-efficacy and actual achievement of the goals. Growth mindset is also called incremental view. So the students that set goals with this view are more likely to use greater effort and persist when the goals get more challenging. So an example of a strong goal in my classroom. So we have an important performance coming up, and the student has challenging music. So I would have the students set incremental goals of their choosing. We have 8 weeks before the performance. The student says, I will learn to play a new 16 measure section of a piece every week. So I will be through the piece in 8 weeks. And so the student has set their own goals and they have made small steps with 16 measures. I would make sure on my part that I would have them focus on learning the musical concepts in each of the sections and not worry about the ending performance. And so this is where, as the teacher, you affect their orientation. Your feedback needs to be about effort and learning the skills that will transfer to other tasks, in this case, other pieces of music. At the end of the concert cycle, I've got to make sure that feedback and conversation about the goals is about mastery of the skills and growth as a musician and not just how that one performance went. So we always have to keep that growth mindset and that mastery orientation at the forefront with successful goals. Another theory that is very successful with our students is the causal attribution theory. So attributions are important. What a student attributes their successes or failures to is often more important than what actually caused the results. So if we can move students to appropriate attributions, then we can help them avoid negative thought patterns and we can increase their effort in future endeavors. Attributions can be classified into 3 dimensions, which are interconnected. So first there is stability. Stability refers to whether the cause is fixed and stable or variable and unstable. Stable attributions are things like ability. Unstable attributions are things like effort. So if a student attributes failure to ability, I'm just not good at math, then they're going to believe that they will fail in the future. But if a student attributes failure to effort, I didn't study hard for this math test, then they can change that to have a better outcome in the future. And that's what we want. So we want that unstable attribution. Locus refers to a locus of control, or whether the cause is internal or external. An internal locus is when the outcome is attributed to ability or effort by the student, is within that student. External locus is when the outcome is attributed to some outside factor, such as luck or the teacher's attitude. Control is how much control the student has over a cause. So controllability interacts very closely with locus. An internal controllable attribution is effort, whether long-term effort or short-term. That is something within the student that they can change. An uncontrollable cause would be aptitude or even health on a specific day. That's something that's internal that a student believes they cannot change. An external locus of control that's controllable is teacher bias, because you could possibly affect how the teacher feels about you. Or also an example would be asking for help from your peers. But an uncontrollable external attribution would be, for example, how difficult a course is. That student has no control over that and it's outside their locus. So if students attribute failure to a stable, internal, uncontrollable cause, for example, if they said, I failed because I'm just dumb in math, well, then they're going to be less likely to be motivated to do better in the future. If you, as the teacher, can frame that failure as, well, you failed this math test, but if you put more effort into these new study strategies, then you can improve. Then you're going to help that student work to improve because they're changing what they attribute this failure to. If you can change their attribution to a controllable internal environment, you're going to help them in the future. It is important when you're helping students reframe their attributions that you're careful that the feedback matches the situation. If a student is putting forth effort and still not succeeding, then feedback about encouraging more effort is not going to be valid. It's not going to help your situation. You may want to give feedback directed towards different study strategies. But if a student needs to increase effort, you want to be sure you give them feedback on effort and not feedback based on their ability levels. And then the last theory we're going to talk about that we can use in our classroom is the expectancy and value motivation theory. So, expectancy refers to a person asking, can I do this? Am I able to succeed? The expectancy to do well, or that self perception of ability, is a very strong predictor of future success or failure. If someone expects to do well, they're most likely to do well. But if they expect failure, or if they believe they have no ability, then it becomes a self fulfilling prophecy and they are more likely to fail in the future. If a student believes that they can control an outcome in the future, then the expectancy can be moved to a more positive factor for motivation. The other aspect of this theory is the value. So, value refers to whether the task is valuable to the student, and therefore they will put forth the time and effort towards success on that task. There's four main categories of values. The interest value means, is this task interesting or enjoyable to me? So the more interesting a task is, the more likely a student will work on it. Finding tasks that are culturally and socially inclusive can work to strengthen this. Attainment means, how does this task confirm who I am, or how important is this task to me being me? So if a student identifies as an academic, this value may naturally be higher than that student that identifies as a jock or a dumb jock. By identifying low attainment value, we can perhaps bolster a student's effort or performance through other means. So, utility refers to how useful a task is to a person in terms of future goals. So, if a student believes that mastering a task will help them pass a class or move towards a career goal, they're going to be more likely to work hard on that task. We have to find ways to help students see the utility in the different tasks that we're asking them to work on. Cost can be thought of as the relative negative cost of doing a task. So, students that see that time spent on a task is a high cost compared to the outcome might not try as hard or be willing to spend time on that task. If the stress of studying for an exam is too high a cost for a student, they may not put in the effort to study for the exam. It's too stressful. So if you have a student that's in your class and they've put a high negative cost on a task, so they're not working hard to complete the task and they're not spending the time or the effort on the task that you wish they would, then maybe you can help frame that cost in terms of one of the other values. So for example, you might say, yes, this takes more time to complete, but it's going to be very useful in the next unit. Or it's going to be very useful as you start working on your career goal of going into this area. But we've got to help the students find value in tasks, even when they don't immediately see the value. We've got to connect with them, whether it's through their interest in an activity or what it means to their future goals, so that they grow their expectancy for success. So if we can bolster expectancy, build that self-efficacy, then that's going to help them be motivated for future success. So our goal with using any of these approaches to motivating our students is to create that growth mindset and have students that are intrinsically motivated and are trying to work for the sake of bettering themselves. We've got to work to help them frame success and failure as part of the larger process of growing as individuals. Building self-efficacy through helping them with goal setting or helping them with attribution retraining, or finding value in tasks has got to be the ultimate goal. Students that believe they can learn and that their own effort predicts their success are more likely to work hard and end up being successful students in school.